the mountains, oh-way-oh, 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 down in the hollow, oh-way-oh, 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 don't you want to, oh-way-oh, 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 won't you come with me?
Up in the mountains, down in the hollow, that's where we like to go and play our drums. Come join the fire, bring all your friends. Let's have a gathering and play our songs. Won't you come with me? Yeah, come with me. Up in the Appalachians or any place that's magic for you. The moon is shining on us. You see the...
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Alex Ojeda, and we're here at Star Walker Project. Star Walker Project is a permaculture project intent on learning the science of living with nature rather than on it. Right now, what we're doing is we're using a waste material known as tires. They might look familiar to you. And we're going to fill them with sand, pound them tight, and use them as the building blocks of an earth home known as an Earthship. And the Earthship was designed by a man named Mike Reynolds, and he's out in Taos, New Mexico. Mike Reynolds invented these, I'd say, in the 70s. Probably started in the late 60s, it's hard to say, but he's been experimenting with them over the years. And what we end up with is a house that doesn't need any electricity to stay warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And it uses convection through a greenhouse that's on the front of the house. It uses thermal mass, which is going to be burned up around these tires and this tire wall. So this is going to go about 10 courses high of tires, and the dirt is going to be a hill burned up to these tires on the outside of the structure, all the way up to about 9 or 10. And according to Mike Reynolds, and we've actually stayed in one of their Earthships in Taos, New Mexico, the temperature inside here should be as close to 70 to 71 degrees year-round without any electricity around. So we'll see how well that works. We've actually bought the plans from Earthship Biotecture, earthshipbiotecture.com, for a 1,200 square foot global model, and we've been permitted here in St. George to build one of those. This is a hut. We're going to use it as an experiment to see how well it works, and we're going to build the rest of it out further towards the trampoline in the distance there. So that trampoline will be under the berm at some point. And but this is going to prove to us a lot of things. Now, I'm under the impression that if I put the greenhouse on the front and I have the culvert coming through the back, and I have everything built just right, that this should in effect be a single U of a larger Earthship and should give us close to 70 degrees inside as possible. Now, if somehow we don't get it perfect and it's within 60 and 80 degrees in our temperature and our climate, that's beautiful. I'll take that all day and night. If we wanted to throw in a tiny 12-volt air conditioning unit and run it off the solar panels, we could do that on a few days of the year when it's really, really nasty out. When it's warm out, a couple of candles in here should heat us up. We'll turn on a hot plate, whatever, you know, and it'll heat us up. But the thermal inertia, the amazing amount of insulation that we're going to have here will hold that temperature. It should not take a whole lot of energy at all, and I'm not thinking we're going to have to. So after we finish with this, we're probably going to do an Earthbag home, we're probably going to do an Adobe hut, we're going to do a bunch of different things, and we're going to see which ones we like the best. We think the Earthship's going to be the best, so we started with the Earthship. But I will tell you that with cob, they say you need to have a nice hat and a good pair of boots, which means get it up off the ground and put a nice roof over it. And if you don't have the clay around, you're going to have clay in reserve to do little repairs of cracks and anything that erodes away for whatever reason. So the idea is to have the repair mixture on hand. So that's something that you have to think about when you're doing cob. Cob's a wonderful, amazing building material. It takes an awful lot of man hours. The technique that we're learning to pound these tires actually goes really quickly. So if you're worried about labor in building an Earthship, come to one of our things and learn how to do this, or somehow we'll make some videos and we'll show how to do it. Because honestly, these tires, it's literally just a matter of slapping them together. I've got to be honest with you. So if you know how to do it, it's a lot less work. And you have to work in teams, and everybody's happier. Yeah. So, Earthbag and Super Adobe. Wonderful, especially if you're living in the desert, because you don't want to have rain hit them all the time. But one of the most important factors of anything, even in our area, even with an Earthship, is sunlight blasting your building structure. If you have, like a lot of people will do, we have a friend that's building a cob dome house, and he's building it out of, I say cob, a sandbag house made out of rice bags. So they're misprinted rice bags you can get very inexpensively. But the minute the sunlight hits these rice bags, it just deteriorates them. They fall apart like an old tarp. And then the whole thing, I mean, if you had one bag go bad in the middle of a wall, it'd be a real tough pain to try to fix it. It would be real tough. So that's something you have to think about. They have to be covered. You cannot let it go. We let this go over the summer and over the heavy rains, and it only eroded 2 or 3 tires out. All that rain and sun and everything, and we still had a wall. So I'm happy about that, especially if it takes you a while to build. So unless you can sit down and build it all in one sitting, you know, and you have the tarps and everything to cover it, you probably want to go with something that can take the weather. And that's something to think about. You know, you could build this structure out of anything, honestly. When I was sitting around the campfire with Mike Reynolds in an Earthship build that I interned on, and I was very happy to be there with him, I asked him questions just like this, like, you know, what do we use if we don't have, and what do we use, you know, what's the case of that? He's absolutely happy with you building anything that works using these natural physics, you know, the convection engine, the cooling, the thermal mass, all that stuff works beautifully. Now, you probably can't call it an Earthship unless you're buying his plans and following his plans, so that's what we're going to do. But people ask me all the time, why won't you use cob or whatever? Well, I will tell you something about cob. It takes clay, and if you don't have clay on the site, you're going to have to bring in a lot of clay, and a very little bit of clay is going to crush your trailer. So it's not real eco, in my opinion, trying to haul in the amount of clay that it takes to build a cob structure. Now, if you have clay, by all means, use cob. I mean, that's an amazing structure. I love that. Use wattle and daub. Make adobe bricks and put that together. Even go the old world route and get some cow manure and mix cow manure in there. This is an amazing thing. The cow manure actually makes it cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. It does a lot of things for that clay combination, so definitely look into it. We're in a part of the world where everything's basically sand, and it's sugar sand, and it's not even as coarse as beach sand. It's actually very light, and it has no structure whatsoever, it seems, until you get it a bit wet, and it shrugs water. It's really weird. So pounding it into tires, we actually do buy a little local clay a guy brings by, and we mix it in with our sand, and we're gonna pound the tires with that. So the majority of the material is coming from your own land. So that's pretty eco in my opinion. You know, once you get your house together, immediately not needing electricity and water and a bunch of other little utilities means that you are not contributing to the destruction of the rest of the planet somehow. So I'm really happy about that. So you stucco the inside, because the last thing you want are tires exposed to the elements. Tires exposed to the elements will off-gas and will release toxins. Tires sealed behind cement, stucco, and moisture barrier in the ground, not being touched by water and not being touched by the sunlight, will be here 250,000 years later. And this is why we want to do this. We want to build these and keep them completely covered, okay? And then we're not worried about toxins at all. If there's any other questions, you know, contact me on Facebook under Permaculture Jacks. I'm out there all the time. And we'll talk all day and night about natural building and building amazing structures with very little money, that don't take money to operate, and that last into the next age, hopefully. Okay?